¿Qué pasa YouTube? 6fthax here. Happy guys today in OU Wi-Fi battle against my boy Harris is Booty. You guys may know him from the streams and from the current FFA session that we have going on. Now, before I get into the actual match, for those of you who are interested to know what my intro song is, a link to that should be down in the description. Also, a link to my Discord where you guys can come ask me for battles, and when I'm looking for battles can battle me. Then a link to that's also down below, so if you guys would like to come hang out, say hello to me, we can talk, battle, hang out, all that shenanigans. So yeah, if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to hammer that like button down below to answer the question of the day, which was on your screen. Now, going into this battle, the biggest threats I saw on Harris's team were going to be that Mega Metagross and the Volcarona, because if Volcarona sets up to +2, it could potentially sweep me late game, and Mega Metagross is a humongous problem to this bulky offense team that I'm bringing. And of course, Harris is a pretty good battler. We battled a lot in the past, so you guys may see him in future battles as well. He does end up leading off with the Metagross. Obviously, I don't want to leave in my Spadef bulky Tapu Fini, so I'm going to switch out into my Zygarde, expecting him to just want to go for the Meteor Mash as he pulls a nice double switch into his Superior. Now, I don't want to stay in and allow the Superior to potentially set up on me, so I'm going to switch into my Spadef bulky Mega Venusaur. Actually, no, I think that is physically defensive Tapu Fini, and this is Spadef bulky Venusaur. Either way, a paste bin is down below of this team if you guys would like to try it out. And he ends up going for the substitute, which is a little bit annoying, and because I know that the Sludge Bomb is way too obvious and that he could easily get a free switch into this giant threat of a Pokemon that is Mega Metagross, I'm actually going to go for the Hidden Power Fire. Now, the good thing about HP Fire is that not only does it break the Superior Substitute, but it does a clean 40% to this Metagross on the switch-in, which is absolutely amazing. And I don't know if he's got the Zen Headbutt or not. Either way, it's way too obvious for him to go for it this early on in the match, so I'm going to stay in here, scout out to see what he wants to do as he goes for the Meteor Mash, almost doing exactly half of my HP. Luckily, though, I'm going to be able to recover off all that damage and be brought back up to full HP. Now, very confident in the fact that he could go for another Meteor Mash, or maybe even go for the Zen Headbutt. I'm going to switch into my Landorus. Now, this isn't the usual defensive support Landorus. This is actually an Adamant Max attack variant of Landorus, which means I cannot stay in here and take an Ice Punch after the Intimidate. Even though he is at -1, I'm not defensive, so it's still gonna knock me out, which means I'm forced to switch out here. And luckily, the Rocky Helmet was able to chip him down below 50% HP, because that's really my best way of dealing with Mega Metagross with this team, is just kind of pivoting around it and making the appropriate switch-ins to chip it down, or making the appropriate predictions to wear it down on potential switch-ins. So at -1, I'm honestly not at all worried about what this Mega Metagross can do to me, as I believe I go for the Nature's Madness here, expecting him to try to switch into his Superior, or maybe try and switch into his Tapu Lele, which, even though I do have Magearna, Tapu Lele can still be worn, still wear down my Magearna, and he could get free double switches on my predicted switch-ins to Magearna against the Tapu Lele, so I really have to be careful with that. As I then go for the Scald, expecting him to maybe want to stay in here, but he does make the good switch there into Superior. Now, I know it's a little bit odd to have Scald on Tapu Fini when Pokemon that touch the ground can't get burned, but it is pretty good for Mons that levitate or Mons that are flying types. Plus, the damage output from Surf and Scald really isn't too crucial. Like, Surf does a little bit more damage, but it's still kind of nice to get burns in those certain scenarios. As we both switch out here, the reason why I brought in my Hoopa was because if he wanted to predict me to bring in my Superior counter, which was my Mega Venusaur, he could easily double switch into Mega Metagross. And by bringing in Hoopa, not only can I live a potential Leaf Storm, but if he goes for the substitute, as you saw there, I do have the Hyperspace Fury, and because I am Scarfed, I'm going to be able to catch this Mega Metagross off guard, and that is one humongous problem now gone that I no longer have to worry about. I love Hoopa, man. I love just the way it looks. I never got to use Hoopa in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, so you guys may be seeing it a little bit more in my Sun and Moon battles. I hope you guys don't mind that, just because I really want to get the chance to use it. As he brings in his Landorus, obviously I can't knock him out with the Hyperspace Fury, and he can easily knock me out with the U-turn, so I'm going to switch into my own Landorus, as he does just end up going for the safe U-turn. I'm able to get a little bit of chip damage with the Rocky helmet, which is really nice. I was a little worried that he was maybe going to get up his stealth rocks. Then again, I do have my Tapu Fini, which can easily defog, but then he can get a free switch on that turn that I do defog. So I don't think him going for rocks would have been a bad play there, as he's going to force me out here into my Magearna, and he does make the double switch into the Volcarona. And this could be very, very bad, because if this turns out to be defensive and sets up in my face, then we could be in a very terrible scenario, as he actually ends up misclicking here on the HP ground. He said that he was either going to go for the Fire Blast or go for the Quiver Dance. If it was Fire Blast, obviously it wouldn't have done too much damage to me, and if it was Quiver Dance, depending on if he's physically defensive or just offensive general, will determine on how I can deal with it, because my Zygarde isn't that weakened. And I'm not really in a scenario where I can predict him to switch out just because of how big of a threat the Volcarona can still be. So I'm going to be forced to go for the 1,000 Arrows, as he does get a free switch into his Landorus. And because I know that almost over half of defensive Landoruses always carry Hidden Power Ice as opposed to Stone Edge, I'm going to make the switch into my Tapu Fini, predicting him to go for the HP Ice, expecting me to maybe stay in, thinking that he didn't have anything to touch me with. And I can't afford to let Zygarde get too weakened, because it's really my best answer to a non-+2 Volcarona. So I need to play carefully with my Zygarde, especially around his Landorus, which just revealed to me that he's got the HP Ice. So I'm going to end up going for the Nature's Madness here, as he does make the switch into his Superior. This is really nice because I'm able to get off a little bit of damage. I also went for that on the off chance that he did try to bring in Tapu Lele, trying to force me back into Magearna, so he could potentially make another double switch or just start wearing down my Magearna. As I'm not in too good of a spot here, I am going to be forced to switch out, as I do bring back in my Mega Venusaur. He is actually going to end up staying in here and going for the Leaf Storm, maybe thinking that I would predict him to switch out, predicting my switch back into my Mega Venusaur, because he could have easily double switched into his Tapu Lele or his Volcarona, which would have put me in a bit of a tough scenario. As he does go for the Leaf Storm, I'm not going to mess around with this threat. I don't want this to potentially boost up to +4, and as you see there, even at +2, that HP Fire does 0, as I'm able to knock him out with the Sludge Bomb. That is one less thing that I now have to worry about, which is really great. Unfortunately, he can now get a free switch into this Volcarona, which I can do nothing to this thing with my Venusaur, so I'm absolutely forced to switch out here, and he knows this, so he's going to make the good play, go for the Quiver Dance, predicting me to switch out, and knowing that I can't do anything back to him because I can't put him to sleep even if I had Sleep Powder, and if I had Leech Seed I definitely would have gone for that, but I don't have it because I'm defensive with Synthesis and 3 attacks. So as long as he doesn't have the Bug Buzz here, we should be in an okay scenario, because I should be able to get off enough damage on this thing to put it in range of where my E-Speed should be able to knock it out, because this is actually an adamant Zygarde instead of the normal Spadef bulky coil set, as I do well over 50%. That's absolutely amazing. Luckily, this Giga Drain doesn't do too much damage, and if he had the Bug Buzz there, he might have actually been able to knock me out at +2, but nowadays, if you see a Volcarona, they tend to carry HP Ground, Fire Blast, and Giga Drain, and not Bug Buzz, because they have Quiver Dance to try and set up. So I'm able to get rid of his second biggest threat, as I'm up 6-3. I'm in a really good spot right now in this match, as in comes the Landorus. He can definitely go for an HP Ice here, and I know this, so I'm actually going to predict him to predict me to switch out and stay in and go for the 1,000 Arrows, as he turns out to go for the Earthquake, predicting me to bring in my Tapu Fini, and I'm able to get off a little bit of extra chip damage on the Landorus, which is really nice, because getting rid of this thing is going to mean that my Hoopa Unbound can potentially come in late game and just start gunk-shotting his last 2 Pokemon, which are the Tapu Lele and the Tapu Fini. So I'm going to expect him to want to go for the HP Ice this turn, on the off chance that he thought I was going to try and sack off my Zygarde, but I can still save my Zygarde for Death Fodder later in the match to sack off to the Tapu Lele. That way my Magearna doesn't get entirely too weakened, especially if I am forced to switch it in against the Tapu Fini and he goes for something like a Nature's Madness. So predicting him to want to switch out here, I'm just going to go for the Scald, or if he did stay in, I could take another Earthquake and knock him out with the Scald, as I do catch the incoming Tapu Fini. Obviously can't burn him because of the misty terrain, so we are kind of at a bit of a stalemate here, and luckily I do have a really good counter to his Tapu Fini in the form of my Mega Venusaur, as he's going to make a really good play here, and he's actually going to go for the Nature's Madness, being able to get rid of my current half of my current HP and putting me in range of where an Earthquake from Landorus can knock me out. Now, because I don't want to be this low, I'm just going to try and go for the Synthesis, but he makes another good play, predicting me to not go for either of my 2 stab moves and go for the Synthesis. He goes for the Taunt, and now I'm in a scenario where do I want to go for Sludge Bomb or do I want to go for Giga Drain? And honestly, Giga Drain was probably my better play as opposed to going for the Sludge Bomb, because not only can I do neutral damage to this Landorus, but I can also do super effective damage to Tapu Fini, and I can do neutral damage to the Tapu Lele. So while weakening both Landorus and Lele and getting off super effective damage on Tapu Fini, Giga Drain was definitely my better play there, as he is able to just barely live. I'm going to switch into my Sneck here, basically as Death Fodder, as he makes a really good play there, predicting me to sack off my Zygarde. He ends up going for the Hidden Power Ice, and this is absolutely fine because I'm still not in too bad of a scenario, as I can safely bring in my Tapu Fini. There's no way that this Landorus should be able to knock me out in any one hit, and then I can Moonblast whatever he potentially wants to bring in against me, as he is going to switch out here into his Tapu Fini. I was kind of hoping that maybe he was going to bring in Tapu Lele because I could start chipping that down. But as long as I do have Magearna around, I can still deal with Lele. Although he still has that Landorus, which he could easily double into, I have to be weary about switching in Magearna against Lele as long as he does have that Landorus. So I get off the Moonblast damage on the Tapu Fini, able to do about maybe 5%, which is really nice. And I'm in a scenario where I can honestly just stay in here and go for the Nature's Madness to weaken his Tapu Fini, as he's going to make a switch into his Tapu Lele. So I'm going to be able to bring that down to exactly 50%, which is really nice, being able to get off that bit of damage on the Tapu Lele. And I am forced to switch out here, but because my switch into Magearna is way too obvious, I'm actually going to make another middle ground play and switch into my Landorus. Now, even if he had knocked out my Landorus with his Magearna, that would have just given me a free switch into another one of my Mons. So because he switched into his Landorus and I'm running a lot of speed on this Landorus, I'm actually going to be able to outspeed him and knock him out with the knockoff, which is really good because now my Magearna has become an absolutely huge threat to his last 2 remaining Pokemon, as he brings back in the Tapu Lele. I have no more use for my Landorus here, so I will be able to just fodder it off, allowing me to get a free switch into my Hoopa, which is Scarf. And I'm not affected by the Psychic that he went for, so I'm in a really good spot to just click Gunk Shot here, and I'll definitely be able to 2-hit KO the incoming Tapu Fini as long as I don't miss, which of course you guys already know I end up missing here. And this honestly isn't that big of an issue because with Hoopa having an insanely high amount of special defense, there should be no way that Tapu Fini is going to knock me out in any one hit, because he is most definitely a defensive set as opposed to an offensive set. So as you can see there, Gunk Shot, easy to a KO. As he goes for the Moonblast, I'm going to be able to chew that, as it just barely did over 50%, which I was really surprised about. I honestly thought that it was going to do a little bit more than that, but then again, like I said, Hoopa does have a huge amount of Spadef, as luckily I am not going to miss my second Gunk Shot, and I'm going to be able to knock out the Tapu Fini. At this point, his last Pokemon is that Tapu Lele, which it doesn't matter what he wants to lock himself into because I have Pokemon that can switch into whatever move he decides to lock himself into. So even if he is Scarfed and he outspeeds me and knocks me out, that's fine. It's not a big deal, as it does turn out that he's Scarfed because I myself am Scarfed. And Thunderbolt doesn't paralyze me, doesn't crit me, and I luckily don't miss my third Gunk Shot, and that is going to be the victory in my favor. I really thought this was a good match just because I felt like I didn't have team matchup going into this game, like playing around Mega Metagross and playing around the Hoopa and the Volcarona were really huge going into this battle. Like I said, there will most likely be more games against Harris because I definitely know he wants a rematch, so win or lose, if that match is good, you guys are definitely going to see it. So hopefully y'all did enjoy the lengthy battle. Make sure to hammer that like button down below, guys. Thank you all for the great support on the videos as of lately. I really do appreciate it. Also, the question of the day is there. Check out the 2 videos on the end screen if you have not seen them already. Actually, yeah, yesterday's upload was my TBU Week 2 match, which was pretty good. I just want to put that out there. So thank you all for watching, guys. Later, everybody. Later.
Cause my brain and heart are both tied in a knot, and this hinders me from crying a lot. This causing me to show no emotion. But when I said I cared, I wasn't joking. But I guess it's too late for me to become broken. For now, I'm living with no more pain, tears, or hoping. I'm just coasting. Yeah, I said I'm coasting. No more pain, tears, and hoping. For real.